Well, a majority of MEPs and many of the Eurocrats, those who are working here at the EU, are sending a very tough message to Viktor Orban and his ruling party, his ruling far-right party, that essentially they're fed up and it has gone too far. And not only have eyebrows been raised by some of the actions that they've seen go on in Budapest, but it has reached the level of concern now where MEPs have felt, a majority of MEPs have felt that they need to take real and concrete action here by holding this vote. And this vote not only just being held, but it also reached the critical mark of surpassing a two-thirds majority. Andrea, going into this vote, there were questions whether that two-thirds mark will be met. Some people in the EPP, the largest party in the European Parliament that Viktor Orban is a part of, thought, well, maybe he could etch out of this vote and not face any consequences, but 448 to 197 was the final tally there. So quite the message to Viktor Orban here.
So Kevin, what exactly are the consequences, or is this right now just symbolic?
So this is the very start, the very initial beginning of the Article 7 process. And Article 7 was put into place in the EU to make sure that if any EU member state gets to the point where there's a breakdown of rule of law and there's grave, dangerous human rights abuses, this Article 7 could be triggered as a punishment. If Article 7 is ever fully enacted against Hungary, it will lose its voting rights at EU summits and when major EU decisions have to be made. It has to be stressed, though, Andrea, that this is a very long, a very lengthy process. And there's a lot of back and forth that goes on between Brussels and Budapest until this would ever be finalized. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all EU member states will have to approve a full enacting of Article 7. And that may be very tough because Viktor Orban does have his allies in places like Warsaw and in other countries in Eastern Europe. So this will be tough, but still a strong message against his government right now.
It does seem, though, Kevin, like an actual turning point of sorts, though, to see the EU say clearly, we have our rules, we have our values, you can't have it both ways. So if you don't follow our laws, there will be consequences. So you mentioned Poland there. Might we see some action taken next against the allies of Viktor Orban in the EU?
Well, interesting question. This is the first time the European Parliament has ever started or triggered the Article 7 process. But the people who work behind me in the European Commission, they've already triggered the Article 7 process against Poland. I mentioned this is a very lengthy process. The European commissioned the Article 7 process against Poland last year. And what happens is the European Commission will raise a specific concern. Poland has 3 months then to write a letter to respond. So there's a lot of back and forth. We're nowhere close to having a final European Council, meaning all EU member states, vote on an Article 7 enactment for either Poland or Hungary. But a turning point, quite possibly, because the level of frustration against those two countries, it wasn't just raising eyebrows, as I said, real concern about the breaking down of the judicial system and a number of laws passed in both countries. Specifically when it comes to Hungary, Andrea, they passed a law earlier this year making it illegal for any activists to help immigrants and refugees in the country. And that, many would tell you here in this city, in Brussels, was the final straw.